Hi, and this video we're going to look at the solutions to the BJC General Science Paper 1, and this is going to be the multiple choice. So I'm just going to circle the correct answer and explain each question. So let's look at question 1. Which class of organism is cold-blooded with scales and gills? Well, scales, you know the size are going to be a fish or reptiles, and then gills, then it must be fish. So the answer there is going to be C. Which cells make up human blood? Well, this is a red blood cell here, and this is a white blood cell here. So I'm going to look for X and Y. X and Y, C again. So I'm just going to draw my circle there. Excellent. Which science is the study of plants? I'm looking for botany, and that's answer B. So that's a B. Which organism is an endangered species in the Bahamas? Endangered species. Well, it looks like all of these are endangered species in the Bahamas. Parrot, conch, parrot, master grouper, queen conch, spiny lobster. So really, this could be any of these. Any of these answers is actually correct. So let me just circle each of these. Question 5. The picture shows a plant growing in water. Use the picture to answer questions 5 and 6. Which structure is the seed? Well, this big thing, even though it's not clear in this diagram, is the seed. So that's going to be C. And which transports food and water to all other structures in the plant? Well, that's going to be B because it sucks water up from the roots and transports them to the rest of the plant. So we'll put B there. Where does peristalsis take place? And that's going to be in the alimentary canal. So part of the smaller intestine. It pushes food so that nutrients can be digested by the intestine. What is hypertension? I'm going to look for high blood pressure. Here it is, A. Which action results in the chemical digestion of food? Breakdown of food into nutrients by enzymes, chewing of food in the mouth, churning of food in the stomach, peristaltic, peristaltic waves of the alimentary canal. Note that if you look at question 9, if you weren't able to answer question 7, you can see straight from choice D, that gives you a hint that peristalsis takes place in the alimentary canal. So that would give you a hint for question 7. The only of these, though, that refer to a chemical breakdown would be question 9, question A, or response A, so 9 is going to be A. And we look at 10, during which process is an ovum released from the ovary? And I'm going to say ovulation. Which organ nourishes and maintains the fetus during pregnancy? And that's going to be the placenta. The diagram shows a human body system. Which system is shown? Well, you can easily go through and cross them off. Definitely not the digestive system. Potentially the endocrine system, but it looks more like things spreading throughout the body. The key, the key point that gives you a clue as to what it is that the heart is included, and the heart is what pumps blood throughout the circulatory system in the body. So it's going to be a which fuel is classified as an alternative fuel. All of these A, C, well, all of these A, B, C, and D can be considered carbon burning fuels, but ethanol of them is the only one that is not really considered to be a fossil fuel. So we're gonna select that as our alternative fuel. And so question 14, which phase, which phrase states the law of conservation of energy? The key thing to look for in this sentence here is conservation of energy. So you're going to look for something that says that nothing is gained or lost. And if you look, yeah, there we go on answer B, can neither be created nor destroyed, only converted from one form to another. So that's going to be the correct answer there. The equation that represents photosynthesis. So you know the photosynthesis is going to be water plus carbon dioxide to give glucose plus plus oxygen. So you're looking for something with oxygen over here on the right hand side of the equation. And the only answer that has oxygen by itself on the right hand side of the equation is this one here. And yes, in fact, we have water and CO2 on the left side, so it must be D. Which of the following does not transmit sound? Well, we know that sound travels in a gas because we can hear people talk when walking around. You know also that sound can travel in a liquid because if you put your head underwater in a pool, you can hear when someone jumps in, you can hear splashes and whatnot. And then finally, if you put your head for example, on a door and someone goes on the other side and knocks on it, you can hear that too. So you know that all of these three can transmit sound. The only one that does not is a vacuum. Which soil layer is made up primarily of organic matter? And organic matter is found the closest to the top of the soil. So it's going to be A. What is a solution? A solution is when you have a solid, well, it doesn't have to be solid, but something dissolved in a solvent. So the only one that says something dissolved in the solvent is question A. Oops, that's too big. Yeah, make that smaller. There you go. What is the importance of the ozone layer of the Earth's atmosphere? Well, the ozone layer is a layer of gas. It's a type of oxygen, actually. It helps to absorb ultraviolet rays from the sun. Oh, excellent question or answer A. And Brian found some rusty nails on the ground near a construction site. What type of change did the nails go through? Well, if they're rusted, that's a chemical transformation from iron to iron oxide. Rust is just iron oxide. So that's going to be chemical change. What statement or which statement about acids and bases is not true? Acids and bases react with metals. Acids and bases have pH values. Acids and bases are corrosive substances. Acids and bases are hard, solid compounds. I'm going to go with this one here. Acids and bases tend to be liquid. What is produced when sound waves are reflected from a solid surface? So when sound waves bounce off a solid, we call that an echo. Which force causes wear and tear on the tires of vehicles and the soles of our footwear? And well, let's check each of these. Friction, gravity, magnetism, and weight. Friction is what is the cause that wears down our shoes and tires. The diagram shows the appearance of a pencil in a clear glass of water. And notice that at first the pencil looks like it's going down at that point, and then it's almost as if the pencil is cut off and starts again and goes down at another angle. That particular phenomenon is known as refraction. Refraction. So that's going to be answer D. And Amy is standing 75 centimeters in front of the mirror. How far is Amy's image behind the mirror? Well, whenever you have a reflection in a mirror, the reflection is exactly the same distance behind the mirror, or the image is exactly the same distance behind the mirror as is the subject in front of the mirror, and so that's going to be 75 centimeters C. When a piece of metal is heated, it expands. What happens to the metal once it cools? Well, the opposite to expansion is contraction, so that's going to be B. Contraction just means it gets smaller. Amanda is measuring the length of the leaf for an investigation. What is the length of the leaf? So if we look, we see that the bottom of the leaf stem is at 0 centimeters and the tip of the leaf is at 12 centimeters, so it's going to be 12.0 centimeters exactly. You might be tempted just to look at this section of the leaf, but if you think about it, this is only going to be 10 and a half anyway, so that's not even appearing in any of the solutions, so it must be 27C. Air is a mixture of gases. What is the percent of CO2 in the air? CO2 is just a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage. In fact, it's only just a little over uh, 0.03, so it's going to be D. By the way, these other percentages represent nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. CO2 is this very tiny percentage here. Water vapor will be anywhere from 0 to about point, I don't know, maybe zero, anywhere from 0 to 1 or 2%. It varies depending, obviously, on humidity. Which phrase describes current electricity? And so current electricity, the word, when we talk about current as opposed to static electricity, current electricity refers to charges that are continuously flowing. So we're going to look for an answer that has a continual flow of electrical charge. Do we have anything more? Yeah, there we go. Answer C. Which plants have root nodules? Which plants have root nodules? I am going to go with a fern. The diagram shows the organisms in a food chain. What is the producer in this food chain? So the producer is always going to be anything that is a plant with green leaves. In other words, chlorophyll to produce glucose. That's why we call it a producer. And so it's going to be D. And question 32. Which row describes the function of xylem and phloem vessels? So these are vessels in the stem of a tree, and they transport water um, with minerals or water with sugars. So the only thing that's talking about the transports is D, so it's going to be D. Xylem transports water with dissolved minerals. Phloem transports sugar to storage areas. What is the boiling point of pure water on the Celsius scale? Well, the freezing point is 0, boiling point is 100, so I should be looking for 100. There it is, answer C. Which process causes water droplets to form on a glass of cold iced tea on a hot summer's day? That's going to be condensation, if we remember what we did with the water cycle. So that's going to be answer A. And we have the next question. A pot of boiling water is made of copper and the handle is made of wood. Which row describes the properties of X and Y that makes them suitable for their functions? So for we're going to look for something where the pot is a good conductor and the handle is a poor conductor. So you're going to look for X being a good conductor, Y being poor conductor. So Y being a good insulator and X being a good conductor. So it's got to be B. A lab technician uses a force of 23 newtons to push a trolley a distance of 3 meters across a laboratory prep room. What is the work done by the lab technician? Well, you know that work is force times distance. So we're going to look at 23 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6. So we're going to look at 69 joules, which is answer D. And we're almost done. A couple more questions. Which part is the wavelength? So whenever you're measuring the wavelength, you're always going to look to measure from uh, peak to peak. And so from peak to peak is A. Wavelength is A. Another way of thinking about the wavelength is once you have covered one complete cycle. So if I start here, that would also be the wavelength here because I've gone from the start and I've come back to my same starting point. Similarly, from this one, I'm starting at the peak and I'm coming all the way back up to the same peak. So I'm back at my same starting point. That's the wavelength. Tony applies a turning action to the cap of a bottle to open it. Which simple machine does the bottle and cap represent? Pulley, screw, wedge, wheel, and axle. It's going to be screw. And 39. Mary uses a nutcracker to open a walnut. Which class of beaver is a nutcracker? Well, it's got to be a first class because there's only one fulcrum point. So I'm going to say A. And then finally, our last question. Nuclear energy is the energy in the nucleus of an atom. Nuclear reactions release heat energy, which is used to turn turbines to generate electricity. What is a disadvantage of using nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is very clean, so it's not a reliable and constant power generation. No, that's an advantage. Small amount of fuel produces a large amount of energy, also an advantage. Waste remain toxic for a long period after use, and that's the correct answer, 40D. Good. So those are the correct answers for 2018 paper two. We will look at paper one in our next video. Hope this helps. I will email these answers to you as well.